Ladies and gentlemen, long time no speak. I forgot the last time we even spoke live, but there is no better way here to close a Tuesday night or start a Wednesday morning if you're in the UK with us here, because obviously I was on originally 6.5 hours ago, obviously, out there, but we're here with our very, very dear friend, and he knows how to promote. He's got his West West clothing shirt on. He's got that St. Lucie Mets shirt on because also, of course, he's an accredited member of the media for the St. Lucie Mets and does a phenomenal job for us here on Sportswire Radio. He is, of course, one of our originals. And without further ado here on the Sports Report, the number one global sports show, our very dear friend, the Honorable MC Ernest Dove. My friend, really long time no speak.
You know what? It's finally time to bring the band back together. So why not, my friend? I mean, I've been missing you like crazy.
There. When you say the band is back together, you got me thinking the NWO, and I don't think we're quite the NWO, but certainly the band is back together, and it is definitely too sweet to have you on.
I'm just really thankful, man, to finally get this chance to be talking to you again, and now we can even stream it. So for better or worse, you got to look at the face of the Ernest Dove. I hope everybody's okay looking at it for a little bit.
Well, you were on Larry Frank's show, and I guess he's sort of with us on Sportswire Radio, but God bless this guy because he actually can't even get, like, the audio on our streams. But you were on Larry Frank's stream, so obviously I want to be very kind. So you have been on at least video streams, but obviously it is good to be with you, and there is a lot to get into. But before I get into the Mets and before I get into the St. Lucie Mets, and I want to talk about this first because obviously we play a number of your shows, obviously on Sportswire Radio and sportnarium.com/player. And for those that might be watching and hearing this for the first time, this is important why I'm bringing it up. And set the tables, Ernest, and why Durham Inu is so important to so many friends of the show and what we do here and giving opportunities to those who deserve it.
Well, that's the thing. It just happened. Like in the spring, in camp, in February, out of nowhere, this crypto just kind of shows up and starts taking over minor league baseball. Nobody knew what was going on. Durham Inu comes out with their RBI token crypto. They want to talk about helping minor leaguers. Before you know it, they're on Twitter Spaces, and they just start handing out crypto like it's like Oprah giving out cards. Like it was an amazing experience. I've been trying to figure this out even from day one. It was like you get a grand, you get a grand. Everyone's just getting paid, and they wanted to make sure like they don't even just want it to be like a charity because they're like, listen, minor league baseball players are pro athletes, so it just got to a point where we want to sponsor these guys. That's why I started telling some of the minor leaguers in interviews, like, listen, you're the new Olympic athletes of like sports right now. You're getting sponsored like an Olympic athlete. See it that way. So it's been amazing. And I know in the early going, I tried to make some direct referrals on behalf of some minor league players, mostly in the Mets organization, a couple of other friends of the shows, even like Stephen Belines now with the Rangers organization. He's sponsored by Durham Inu. Mets guys like Marcel Renneria, Joe Zangi, guys are getting sponsored like crazy. Trey Cobb in the Mets organization, now in AAA. And Durham Inu RBI token they just took over, and they're handing out direct funds directly into the hands of the players pretty much within 24 hours once they get sponsored. So it's direct payments. And that was in February and March when the players weren't even getting paid, by the way. Minor leaguers don't get paid till opening day. That just happened like last week or so. So they all started basically getting monthly rent out of nowhere from Durham Inu. So obviously shout out to them. Last I checked, there's 11 Mets players in the Mets in the farm system that are all sponsored by Durham Inu. And I know that at this point, they're up to over $60,000 that have been given out to minor leaguers. And I think it's over 70 players at this point around baseball. A lot of Oakland A's minor league players recently have all been kind of passing it around too, like a little joint. So they've been kind of hooking each other up, learning about Durham Inu, and then they've been getting sponsored as well. So word has been traveling from, again, West Coast A's to the Mets. Everybody's getting sponsored at this point. So it's been cool to watch and even experience it on a very tiny level on my part. trying to help out some of the guys that I know, and they've been taking off from there.
It's so important, and we'll get into the Mets, we'll get into friends of the show, we'll get into all that, but it's so important, and obviously on a personal level, you've gotten to know these guys. Obviously, we've done countless interviews together with different friends of the show who are in the minor leagues and have had now long careers in the minor leagues. And you think about the minor leagues, and these guys get paid less than the minimum wages across most of the country when you think about it. And it's really disheartening. And I know for me on a personal level also, because we do so much with professional wrestlers and college athletes at a lower level, it kind of fits into what we do here on Sportswire Radio and kind of how I've been able to, survive to where we are. And we've had the success, obviously, and you've been a huge part of that here over the past 3.5 years. And, at the end of the day, I mean, this is something that should have happened sooner. And I'm almost going to make you laugh here. I mean, I hope your crypto account has gone up since you got involved in all this. Because I feel like I brought up crypto to you before Durham Eno, and you were like you didn't know much about it, but now you have to be like the most crypto expert there is, because Uniswap obviously is a huge part of this, and there's so many other altcoins out there that I don't want to turn this into crypto because I do want to get into the Mets and such. But I mean, you've got to now know so much about crypto now because it's almost a part of your world. I mean, literally, I see it on Twitter all the time. It's cryptocurrency and RBI, cryptocurrency and RBI, and obviously for good reasons for our very dear friends at Durham Eno.
Yeah, because again, it's one of those things with the sponsorships, but it's direct payments. Minor leaguers, friends of the show, friends of yours, minor league friends of mine, they're literally getting funded. And they were saying they're using this money in February, March to literally pay rent, and they're buying themselves food for the entire month of like February and March heading into this season. So that's why I took it seriously. And that's why I've been excited about it, because it's literally giving them money. It's giving in crypto, by the way. So, hey, get those investments going.
Well, crypto, unfortunately, it's like, again, the economy hasn't really done that great this year, unfortunately. I mean, it was, I think at one point, Bitcoin was like 60,000, 65,000. Now it's kind of settled in the 40s. So hopefully they got it at the right time and they got it in at the dip, but that's kind of crypto. I mean, listen, man, real quick, I'll tell the story all the time. In 2016, I actually got introduced to Bitcoin when it was like, I think like a few $100s. And I was told, yeah, go buy in. And I did buy in, but what I should have made and what I made is two different things. And I always tell that story. So obviously at the end of the day, you still get into crypto. And where can people find out more information on Durham Eno? For those that are hearing this here and watching, listening, give us where they can find out more and get involved with Durham Eno.
Yeah, go to durhaminu.com, durhaminu.com. Go on the website, read all the testimonials. They got the videos. They got all the player pictures. A few of the guys are in the majors now, by the way. They have some major leaguers there as well. They have sponsoring. So go on the durhaminu.com. You could even buy the RBI crypto. That also helps, obviously, in a way. It'll end up helping sponsor minor league players later, using some of the funds, some of the investments. And also follow them on Twitter at Durham Eno. And that's kind of what it's all about. I'm even an NFT enthusiast at this point. I got me a Diamond Dogs NFT. I'm working with the guys at Baseball Boys with BOIS, trying to get into some things, maybe to interview the guys there for the NFTs. It's a really interesting kind of situation there as well with the artists. Even the former Mets, turned Orioles prospect, Tommy Wilson, is a big-time NFT artist.
Tommy Wilson, who was doing I remember Tommy Wilson when he was doing podcasting. Remember when we were doing podcasting, Tommy Wilson was in the podcast world.
And now he's selling NFTs for what costs like a whole minor league baseball salary for a year. You could buy a Tommy Wilson NFT for about the price of a salary. So it's a pretty fascinating experience. Again, listen, I don't know. Disclaimer, invest at your own risk. Do your due diligence. My thing is, I just know that minor league players have been getting helped directly through knowledge of them, knowing, and them literally telling me they got paid. So that was my focus. Whatever anyone wants to do, love it. Otherwise, don't worry about it. Put your money in stocks and bonds. Put it in the bank account savings and let that 1% run. You're good to go. CDs, 401k, whatever,
It'll definitely be, I think, a little bit more than 1%, obviously, and certainly, like you said, invest it at your own discretion. Of course, these are
Yeah.
reasons why you also want to follow Ernest Dove, also on Twitter at Ernest Dove, and also Ernest.Dove, also on Instagram as well. Subscribe to his YouTube page, and certainly all the great things he does for us. We're very, very lucky to have him here on Sportswire Radio and all of our platforms: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn. Lyndon McGrath's Northeast Streaming Sports Channel. Also, Desmond Johnson for Tomorrow Tobacco Road Sports Radio. And, of course, the flagship here, sportnarium.com/player. And we'll get to some of the minor leaguers here shortly. But I know it's early, but I'm looking up here, and the Mets are 9-3 in the standings, and everybody's getting ready to celebrate. And I'm in Duffy's in Staten Island this evening, and I see Garrett Cole struggling, getting out of the second inning. He's struggling there, and all of a sudden it looks like I look up, it's April 19th, and the Mets are 9-3 in first place, and they sweep the 107-win San Francisco Giants, and it looks like everybody's feeling really good right now.
I mean, as well they should. I mean, it's the Mets. It's April. Everyone wants to worry about what's going to happen in June, but it's just you can see the different feel in what's going on. The depth is showing. DeGrom hasn't even taken the mound, and they're 9-3. So nobody knows what's going on. You got a Tyler Mcgill, who nobody ever heard of outside of maybe listening to our show, by the way. We were talking about Mcgill in the minors, and he's been out there doing great. He finally had like an off day, and then he fought his way through 6 innings, eating up 6 innings with the 4 run, keeping the team involved, and they end up coming back anyway. And then Max Scherzer. When would the Mets sign a guy like him? Usually they would sign him at like age 41 for like 5 minutes. And they would make poor Gary on the broadcast talk about his history and his Cy Young career as he's winding down. But the new age Mets under Steve Cohen, they get these guys coming off super seasons. So that's why everyone's excited. I mean, there's the depth going on. The Mets are like able to bunt for hits and they steal bases. I don't know what's going on, but that's what's happening right now.
It's definitely a interesting start to the season. Of course, our very dear friend, of course, host of the Baseball Banter Show, who's on our Friday shows here on Sportswire Radio. You can catch it 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time on all of our platforms. Mr. Justin Gianelli chimes in, LFGM. And, of course, Justin, got to give him a shout-out because of the Baseball Banter Show, but also because now he's a season ticket holder for Sunday. He's got the 20-game plan. So I want to shout out Justin for all the great things that he does. And, obviously, Justin is the man. Love Justin Gianelli and love what he does for us for Sportswire Radio. He is a very, very happy man. And I think right now, the Honorable MC Ernest Dove, I have to say that Met fans, are they happy with Francisco Lindor? I mean, it seems like it's going to always be the topic here, as Jimi Hendrix would sing famously, till the end of time. But Lindor, give me your impressions. And so far, I mean, he got a couple of hits once again. And I feel like at the end of the day, I know we spoke about this last year during the season, I feel like he will get to where he needs to be.
He was already getting there anyway, towards the end of the year. So everyone was, you see the contract, was it over $340 million? But then by the end of the year, his average OPS, 5 other stats and metrics.
20 home runs last year. 20 home runs is hard to do, man.
He was basically the last 3-4 months, he was doing what he's done his entire career. He just had an awful start. And then here we are this year. I don't know what else you want to ask of him. At this point, he's like a 300 hitter. He's hitting everything. He's hitting with runners in scoring position. He's tying the game. He's winning the game. He's playing defense. He had the weird almost throwing error, but thankfully Pete Alonso is a beast and he's really tall, so that helped. But, I mean, he's still having a great year. I guess it always comes down to the contract, and I know if you want to take it seriously, well, I don't know how much money he would have gotten this offseason because the money seems to be different. You know what? Hey. At the end of the day, he had an offseason 1 year sooner. The salaries were still pretty high. The market changes up and down. Enjoy what you have. You have a solid defender. He still has speed. He can probably hit 25 to 30 home runs this year and for the next 5, 6, 7 years. So what else could you add? In 3-4 years, he might be considered underpaid when the new guys start getting.
I know. Listen, Justin on his show was talking about Vladimir Guerrero and him getting possibly $400 million, right? I mean, so at the end of the day, I mean, Lindor can't be that bad. I mean, listen, the 3 years prior, 2020, 33, 32, and 38 home runs. Correct me if I'm wrong, somebody. So if we're getting 25 to 27, like you said, for the next 7 or 8 years, when have we had that for the Mets? When have we ever had that? So,
with defense and speed. So I don't know what else you want to ask for. I don't know what they need from him. What, 50 home runs, 150 RBIs, maybe to earn the money. I don't know what it is. Let's just enjoy it currently as it stands. And he's also a good personality. He's got the whole package going on, so you might as well enjoy it.
I always kind of liked him with the Indians. There was always something about him. I kind of liked him, and I think he was definitely a good move for the Mets, and we'll certainly see about that. And Dom Smith, I mean, listen, we spoke about Dom Smith. I feel like forever, and you know Dom Smith better than anybody because, well, you knew him down there in St. Lucie, and Pete Alonso, obviously, for those that may be with us here for the first time, or even some of the Sportswire radio crowd that's just getting to hear us. But I mean, Dom Smith, I feel like I'm listening to him on the radio. People talk about it. Even Justin shows an example. And I feel like if he gets the at-bats and he gets the chance to play, I mean, this is a 280 guy, 290 guy that can give you some power and, most importantly, maybe play some first base on those days that Pete, well, maybe he needs a bit of a break. I mean, give me your thoughts on that.
Well, that's always been the thing. I mean, my thing with Dom, even in the minor leagues, he was a guy that was going to spray the ball, go opposite field, put it on the ground on the opposite field. He was going to spray it around. The glove, it was always insane. It just seemed like in the majors for a year or two, he started pulling the ball too much. The power was kind of showing. The average was down. And then all of a sudden, he had this amazing short season year. And then it just came out again slow. It's been kind of up and down. But again, he doesn't get to be an everyday player. The bench role can be probably really weird. Or you're playing left field. I mean, Dom in left field is you try your best. He's not awful out there. I mean, there's guys who have examples of him playing in left field. We see it in the majors around the league, but he's a first baseman and a DH, if anything. He's going to succeed, I think. I don't know how he's going to keep getting enough at bat. I don't know how that's going to happen. You can see with Pete Alonso, one way or another, they want him in there every day. And
can you blame them? Can you blame the Mets? I mean, you know that better than anybody.
You got to play Pete Alonso. He can hit a home run on any given day, anywhere on the field. And I could talk all day about Robinson Cano, but right now he's still on the roster. They're going to keep putting him in the game. So you got to fit in Cano. You have McGill. There's guys that got to be playing around. So then Connor's going to come back. It's going to keep being rough for him unless you keep putting Pete Alonso at DH. But even with that, universal DH, but maybe against lefties, they keep crowbarring J.D. Davis in there to be at least the DH against lefties. I mean, I know Buck and everyone keeps trying to get guys into the games, which is also good. I can't complain about that. You want to get all these guys at bats, but I'm always going to be a big Dom Smith fan. It's just I don't know how he's ever going to get like 300 to 350 at bats. It's going to be tough for him.
And Justin chimes in, obviously, and Justin says McNeil will handle the bulk of the second base when Canna returns. Give me your thoughts on that, Ernest. Then I'm going to plug Justin.
I mean, for me, that would seem like the plan. That's going to also, again, that might also still move Cano to DH, technically ahead of a guy like Dom or Dom and JD fighting for it. So that's going to be the thing. Robinson Cano is going to be the name. I tried to be funny on Twitter, like I was hoping he would hit the walk-off. He ended up walking in the ninth or in that 10th inning. So I don't know what's the leash on a guy like Robinson Cano with Steve Cohen money. I don't know if it's different because obviously under prior ownership, he's playing out the entire 2 years. No one's letting him go. So
if it was your money, you'd probably want to do the same thing, right?
But, my concern as well is Kana comes back. By the way, May's going to show up. Aren't the rosters going from 28 to 26? I don't know what's going to be happening and who's going to get what playing time. Are they going to let certain guys go? What are they going to do with Jankowski? But as far as that, if McNeil goes back to second, Cano, Dom, and JD, I mean, I don't know how you're going to do that kind of whoop-de-doo and twirl them around. Also with Guillorme, by the way, who I'll talk about forever.
We're going to get to him. Don't worry. We're going to get to him.
But but again, this is the good news, though. And I swear the Mets, even last offseason, last year, they were working on having more depth. even through their 40-man. Here we are again. Technically, the depth has been showing. It's been insane. When you're missing guys from day one anyway, missing a couple of guys since the season started, and they're in first place anyway, the depth is even higher than ever at this point, especially with the pitching and the rotation. So it's looking good.
I'll tell you what, I mean, on a few Sportswire radio shows a few weeks back, and for a couple of them, I was like, I don't know about this lineup, and this lineup isn't that great. And guys like Justin and the Brute Force Brad Weiss, but no, I'm telling you, this lineup's good. And so far, lineup looks pretty good. And again, to Justin's point, if McNeil is back to the McNeil of old and Dom Smith is close to the player of 2020, obviously Cano, I mean, these guys, the backs of their baseball cards are pretty good. Lindor as well. And of course, I want to give a plug to Justin for all the great things he does for us. His Baseball Banter Show on Twitter at bballbantersm. Also, Jay Gianelli12. Follow him on Twitter as well for all the great things that he does for us in the Baseball Banter Show. We play throughout the week here on Sportswire Radio, along with Ernest Dove's great shows that he does. So I want to make sure everybody follows all of the great things that Justin does for us, and of course, Ernest Dove. And certainly, I got to get to it because I'll get to Louis Guillaume in a second. But Max Scherzer, Justin's absolutely right. I mean, I'm trying to think of a pitcher that we've had like this. I mean, maybe Pedro Martinez that 2005 season, but he wasn't in his prime. And I know Max Scherzer is not quite in his prime technically, but I'm trying to think back in Mets history, and Justin knows his stuff, and he might be able to correct me and some other people here. But, I mean, we really are seeing something special here. I know we've got DeGrom, but to bring in somebody like this, I mean, I'm trying to think of the instances. I guess Santana, maybe 2008, Pedro 2005, but even them, I don't know if this pales to what we potentially could see all year with Max Scherzer. And this debut at Citi Field, I mean, it was pretty special here tonight.
Yeah, you could see it. It was electric. I think Gary Cohen might have did his usual jinx with the no-hitter and ruined it. But I mean, again, the bottom line though, with Max Scherzer, he's a guy that, like you said, that combination of a veteran, which they can have, but veteran, still currently at the top of his game. He eats innings, so he's not that guy that does really, really well and he tries to go 5 innings, maybe 6. He'll sit there and tough out 7 anyway, regardless. He'll go over 100 total pitches. So when you have that combination, plus giving up, 0 to 3 runs almost on every single given night, that's something that you can't take that away. To have a guy like that still in a way in his prime, even at 37, that's what you're dealing with right now. To sign a guy like that to like the highest AAV, like pretty much ever. So he's giving you what you paid for already. Even in the leadership, the energy. Buck Showalter's press conference, even afterwards, talks about it. Like the guy comes out like he's a horse. He literally is prancing around. He's roaming around the dugout. He's got energy, and it makes the other team, everyone else like gets worried. The Mets teammates are going crazy. It even helps with the energy. But when you back it up with that performance and the history and the veteranship, that's a tough combo to come by.
And I want to get to a couple of more comments here on Facebook, and I'm now going to read them, and I apologize that I had missed them. And the first is Daniel O'Friel, I guess, and apologies for any mispronunciations. I always like to say I'm from Brooklyn, so I mean I always never get anything right, but he had here, and I'm referring to Dom Smith here, I think, Daniel, here. He has to say, he said he had over 400 at-bats last season, 446 in 2021, 244 average. You're saying, meaning us, he'll hit 280-ish. He doesn't think so. Walk me through some of your thoughts on that comment here by Daniel O'Friel related to Dom Smith.
I mean, the stats are right there. I know playing my defense game, and I know it was being talked about since the season has started. Oh, by the way, it was revealed that Dom Smith was injured last year, and he played injured. So, I mean, it sounds like a defense, but again, the guy's playing injured most of the year. And we've heard it in past years with that guy who used to play Major League Baseball called Michael Conforto. He had that wrist injury years ago. No one really talked about it. When he had that awful year, he got demoted. Here we are with Dom Smith. And even with J.D. Davis, apparently, he also had some times playing injured last year. But Dom apparently was playing injured for pretty much most of the season. So he still got off to a slow start this year, so time will tell. But that's my thing. My understanding, and that's been reported, since camp and since spring was that Dom actually had an injury that he was playing through. And that could have obviously been a huge factor in how he was playing the game last year.
Listen, those are certainly fair points, and obviously, again, very, very fair. And we have a couple of other people who've liked what we're doing here. Obviously, Chris Pizzea. Chris is also with us on Sportswire Radio. Chris is the co-host of the Talking Rivals show, where they cover the Yankees and Red Sox, so a little bit less heated with what we're talking about, obviously. Also, Keith Engel is with us on the Northeast Streaming Sports Channel, and it looks like Brett Boone liked our video. I don't know what Brett Boone is doing watching us talk about the Mets, but apparently Brett Boone has liked our video. So I don't know if Brett Boone is looking for something. I don't know what it is here, but obviously also want to acknowledge Ted Cheney-Mazadnian, also who's on us here on Sportswire Radio with the Wrestle Rewind podcast, which I have to play the show tomorrow. I actually haven't got a chance because, well, I've been live 3 different times today, and I was on a Zoom earlier, so my apologies. We'll definitely get to all that here. And, of course, if you like what you hear from us on Sportswire Radio, please give us a like on Facebook at Sportswire Radio and also sportnarium.com/player. And we're here with the Honorable MC Ernest Dove. I am the host of the Sports Report in the station, manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryson. I got to bring it up because he's actually been the talk of social media, but maybe not so much for the reasons we've spoke about in the past with you. And that's, of course, Louis Guillorme. And when I first saw the video of the Honorable MC Ernest Dove, I thought, did he lose 20 years on his face? He went from looking like us to where he might have been looking like, I don't know, he just came out of high school. I mean, first impressions are not so much about Louis Guillorme getting a hit, but what'd you think of the clean-shaven look?
I still don't really know who it was, but some guy with Guillorme on his back. I mean, he was doing what he always does, but hey, he finally got that hit. He's off the schneid, so we can finally get back to things. He still had one of his customary walks that I love mentioning on Twitter when he gets on base, but he's got the hit. He had another walk. The defense was, as always, in the doubleheader. So he's still doing his thing. The same thing with Dom, even on a lesser extent. Can he even get the same amount of at-bats as Dom? Even that'll be really tough for Guillorme. Even with the DH, maybe they'll keep trying to squeeze him in there in the infield to replace guys like JD or Cano or even McNeil when McNeil's bouncing around the field. They'll probably try their best to get him into the games. I'm just glad he's able to get the hit out of the way. And I don't know, the beard, obviously it was even said publicly, and I knew about it privately, that he just kind of did it to kind of do that reverse jinx on yourself as the baseball superstition. So, hey, you know what? It works. So now maybe he'll continue to grow it and never shave again until he goes into a slump, and maybe he won't have any of those slumps. He'll be right back to normal by November.
Well, I'm going to definitely make you chuckle because I've had the mutton chops now for just about, I think about 3+ years now. I don't even think I could imagine shaving off the mutton chops. And I have half of what Louis Guillorme is. I have half, although I have it probably longer on the sides than he did. But that's got to certainly take a while here. But when it comes to the Mets, and I'll get to the St. Lucie Mets here in a second because I want to cover a lot on that. I mean, I tell you, one of the biggest things I hear on our Friday shows and from people that message me left and right about the Mets and everything else is, for the first time, it seems like the Mets have a manager that has experience, that sort of commands that maybe across not only the league, but most importantly, across the clubhouse. And we love Louis Rojas. Obviously, you knew him very well, but it seems like so far, and I was speaking with somebody, it's one of our listeners earlier before, for the first time, as long as I can remember, the Mets have that certain manager in Buck Showalter that commands that attention, that commands that, okay, you respect him. Maybe since Bobby V. I mean, give me your impressions on Buck Showalter so far.
Well, even obviously publicly, he's as advertised, and he has the experience both in managing and in front of television anyway. So the experience in all those levels is showing. He seems to give all the right answers at every given moment based on the experience of the playing, coaching, and, being on TV. He's been pretty upfront too. He's got the jokes. He doesn't do the some of the other Sandy Alderson things with some kind of jokes and quips, like even against fans here and there. He don't do any of that.
Well, Sandy was kind of like almost like he didn't have a personality. He was very much like a military guy. He reminded me of which one he was. He was like, kind of dry. He was dry at times.
But Buck, he's everything you could ask for at this point. Like everything else with the Mets, you don't want to overdo it, overthink it. Even from today, I can have my thoughts on some of the stuff in Game 1. You had Jankowski, and you had certain guys pinch hitting or not pinch hitting, and just certain things going on with there. Maybe the bullpen use here and there. Maybe if it was a Rojas or Terry Collins in years past, he might have been obliterated on Twitter and publicly.
Oh,
but
can you imagine Mickey Callaway when we were starting out? We had Mickey Callaway as the manager.
yeah, but again, what if one of them was the manager and they left Jankowski in? He would probably be ripped and destroyed after the game. But there's always kind of like you give the credit where credit's due when the W's keep coming. So the W's are happening. But again, for the role that the manager plays, especially in the year 2022, in today's baseball, he seems to obviously be perfect for it. He's going to do everything right publicly on TV because he knows what to do in all facets of the game and television.
It's so fascinating to me because it's almost, and we'll shift gears here, but you're seeing almost a veteran manager come back in vogue. We have Dusty Baker, obviously. Tony La Russa, who's like got to be like 800 at this point. And you got Buck. And it's almost to me like those veteran managers like 5 or 6 years ago were almost like, oh, we've got to get away with them because we want to change and a shift in the game. And it's almost like those managers are back in vogue. I just find that so fascinating that these managers that were considered like 5 or 6 years ago, when we were starting out 3 years ago doing this, it was like, oh, they were too old. No way. You can never interview them, have them come back. And yet here we are. And they're, again, at the top of the list for the successful managers in all of baseball here. But I want to shift gears to the St. Lucie Mets and some friends of the show. And I want to go to friends of the show first, because when I think of friends of the show and somebody that has been at the show a few different times and somebody I feel like that will get back to the show, and that's Stephen Nagosic. And certainly Stephen Nagosic, we've had him on, we've heard his story and kind of had some unfortunate luck a couple of different times, but he's right there. And I don't want to jinx him. We were talking about this off the air, but for those that are watching and listening, especially on Twitter and such, I mean, Stephen Nagosic has got me excited that if we do have some problems with the bullpen and Buck's having some troubles, Stephen Nagosic ain't too far away, and he's literally another county away that we can get him up in here, and he's right there. I think we're going to see him again. And walk me through Stephen Nagosic and his strong start.
I mean, that's the thing. Even you and I obviously have been talking about him for years, and even now the latest reports and information that I have is that he's throwing basically a variation of 5 pitches right now, 5, but unlike possibly all years prior of his career, he was working on it a lot last year. He even talked about it on the show, talking about command of his pitches. And here we are this year. He hasn't had a walk for the season for the 3-4 appearances. Short April just happened, 3-4 appearances. But it's always, you want to look for good signs of guys who have the 95 plus anyway. But when you throw 95 plus, when you throw an assortment or variation of 5 different pitches, and right now he's throwing the 5 with command. And I remember guys from years ago, and one minor leaguer told me the story, one minor leaguer to another, a veteran. What do you need? Health and timing when it comes to the arms. You have a guy with health and timing, and the command has been on point. Those are the guys that you're going to start looking at. And again, Nagosic is a guy, he's been to the majors, got DFA'd, sent completely off the roster. He even re-signed as a minor league free agent back with the Mets. They both wanted to gamble back on each other. The loyalty was there. The trust was there. They believed in him. And here he is again, back at AAA, pretty much pitching the 8th and the 9th inning every time he comes into the game. There's no other levels to go but majors. And again, he's off the 40-man again. But he's been off the 40-man before. We were there when he made it to the majors, got kicked off the 40-man, re-signed back, and he made it back to the majors again.
Right. We had him on right when spring training of last year. And it was like, we saw what he did and we were like, no, he's going to come up. And eventually he got that call. And I kind of feel like the scenario is going to play itself out here again, because he's just put himself in positions where he hasn't given up. And I think that the key that he has is that he's got the big league experience. So we know that he's not that far away, and he'll get back here. And some other friends of the show, and obviously I want to talk about one that we've had on, and he hasn't quite gotten to the big leagues, but he's right in the same boat, I think, and that's Trey Cobb. And I feel like Trey Cobb is going to be a guy that just might finally get this call later this year.
Yeah, he's always the guy that you and I are going to forever root for. He's also sponsored by Durham Inu.
Yep.
He's the guy who has a family.
And his father was a big fan of ours, by the way. Have to mention his father, Trey Cobb. He is a huge fan of ours, by the way.
Yeah, and he's also a guy. He's got a wife, he's got kids, he's got the twin girls. He's got a whole kind of situation going. But by the way, go out there, hit on that bus, get on that train, show up, pitch. The other night, he pitched like almost 3 innings, and he's a reliever. But he's the guy that they want and need to absolutely eat innings. You always got to worry about that struggle on the grind. But the thing I was excited about with Trey Cobb this year is he lowered his arm slot. Not necessarily a sidearmer, but he's working a little bit more towards the sidearm, which I'll always love at any moment. So he's got more of the frisbee.
You have like the sidearmers for a while.
Oh, I always forever. So he did he lowered the arm slot. He's still maintaining a fastball that can hit 92 to 95. So if he can still touch that 95 with a bit of a frisbee slider, that's what I'm pretty excited about. I know it's just tough when you pitch so many innings. He had 1 inning doing really well, 1 out, he comes back. By the second, third inning, you lose a little bit of gas maybe with a couple of walks here and there. But no one's a 1-inning guy anymore in the bullpen. So that's why when you have guys like this, when you have even a Nagosic who used to just basically throw 99, 100 for 1 inning, now you need Nagosic to throw 5 pitches and go 2 innings all the time. Same thing with Trey Cobb. By the way, I'm glad that you're healthy again. You and I obviously knew him for years. He had Tommy John, comes back. But by the way, we need you to get back to 95. We need you to eat 1, 2, 2.5, 3 innings. It's a lot to ask, but guys like Trey Cobb and Nagosic, they've been eating it up, and they've been working really hard in April. So again, long season in Major League Baseball. Guys not on the 40-man usually end up on the active roster at some point.
Well, Trey, I remember especially because we had Trey on, I think, right around the time of the injury, and that was in 2020. I think it was in May 2020 we had him on. And the reason I remember, and you'll never know this, and in fact, and Trey loved the interview, but I was actually recording that Indian-style crouched on my bed, that recording, because this was pre-video days, because I had so much noise. I had, for whatever reason, like, my mother had friends over, and I was going like this and squinting. You would never have known it, but that was actually, and Trey was like, that's one of the best interviews I've ever done. So that's how I remember it was in May 2020, but obviously we always root for Trey Cobb. And before we get to the St. Lucie Mets, and talk to me about a few other guys, I always feel like I look on social media, and obviously supporters of ours like Ron Laird, and Ron Laird is the man, by the way. I want to shout him out because he is always on our Friday streams here. And a couple of those guys I always hear him mentioning is Ronnie Mauricio, Francisco Alvarez, and of course, Mark Vientos. And I mean, of all the people I think we haven't spoken to here on this show, Mark Vientos is literally the guy right now in the Mets organization. But set the tables for us on their starts before we move on to some of the St. Lucie Mets and some other things here.
Yeah, I mean, again, something you and I have talked about for a few years now. The Mets were pretty much top-heavy in teenagers when it comes to prospect rankings. But here we are in 20. That was 2-3 years ago. So here we are. Now you got these guys that are in the higher levels at this point, starting at the top with Francisco Alvarez. He's lighting up and destroying double-A ball. I think even tonight he already had to be walked 2 more times. He's already going to start getting walked again. He has 4 home runs in his first 6 games. So, and that's a kid or a guy who's 20 years old. So Alvarez is off to a ridiculous start. Brett Beatty, the young, high school third baseman who kind of had to be jumped. Then they obviously everybody lost the season. So all the high school picks, you really get lowered in development, losing the 2020 year. He's off to a hot start. Ronnie Mauricio, you and I have been talking about him for years. I've been waiting 3 years for him to find a new position. They don't seem to want to move him around. So as of still today, he's still playing shortstop every night. He's still hitting the ball again really well. All the top prospects are going up. I think Vientos is in that slump again. He was in a slump last April, starting off in a bit of a slump. He had a big game the other night, but he's been slumping here and there in April. But you have him all the way up in AAA. And these guys now that were really young, now they're all sitting here at high A, double A, AAA. And that's why the buzz is starting to come around. And I was talking about Jose Butto since 2019.
I remember.
So
I remember
even for
guys like Sherwin Newton who we're going to get into, and I remember trying to figure out how to pronunciate him 3 years ago, and you were like, no, I'm telling you, watch him. And Mark Vientos, I mean, Mark Vientos he might have had like the biggest hot streak of anybody in the entire Mets organization with the power last year. I mean, even Alonso, I mean, he had a stretch, it was like ridiculous. I mean, so these guys, it's like they're coming of age, and you were basically calling a spade way back in the day almost. So it shows you that you know your stuff. And I want to get to the St. Lucie Mets and some of the players that we should keep an eye on, because I see your photos popping up, and I try to keep up with everything, because I try to keep with every tweet I possibly can from you. And I apologize if I can't, because I've got so many shows we have to program. I got my own stuff we're doing, and obviously the time difference, everything else. But walk me through, at least for those who are watching and listening to this, the St. Lucie Mets and some players you are most especially focused on. The Honorable MC Ernest Dove.
Well, I always love my mix of the top guys and underdogs. Some of the top guys, you and I were even talking about it last year, the teenager Alex Ramirez, who I think is still technically a teenager. But now he's blossoming, because 18-year-old Alex Ramirez, covering him in St. Lucie, just starting out, he was kind of doing okay, doing all right, trying his best. Now he's 19 years old, and they have him repeat the level, and he's basically hitting 500 for the year almost to start for the first week of the minor league season back in St. Lucie. So he seems to be putting it all together. And then the other guy, talk about Trey Cobb. Trey Cobb told us some stories a couple of years ago about outfielder Stanley Consuegra, about some of his live BP. He hits absolute tanks in BP, and then that was happening even before the one season that was lost. Then Consuegra had some injury issues for the last 2 years, and now outfielder Stanley Consuegra, knock on wood, and he's been here. He is finally healthy, like 2 or 3 years later, and Consuegra's gotten off to a hot start. That's why you got Ramirez 1, Consuegra 2 in the batting order pretty much every night for St. Lucie. Which, by the way, St. Lucie, I believe, might be in first place. They might be, I think, 7-3 right now.
And last year we saw that they were doing very well in the standings throughout most of the season last year.
Yeah, and this year they have that version of veterans, because, again, I think I've been talking about it all spring now for the start of the season. Because of what's going on with the Mets, because of the AAA depth, everyone's getting lowered. A lot of friends of the show that even I can fight for, even Trey Cobb technically was on the AA roster before he got called up immediately. You're kind of sending guys into lower levels. And here we are, even in low A, you've got 22 and 23-year-olds who possibly in other circumstances might be in high A, but they're being held back the way the system is right now for the Mets farm system, for better or worse. But there's a lot of guys doing well, like Ramirez, Consuegra. There's also a lot of draft picks. A lot of 2021 draft picks are all now playing for the St. Lucie Mets. Even the pitcher, what I saw in the home opener, Carson Seymour, pitched really well, a guy who can top 95 plus, showing some good breaking stuff. I guess the concern with him has always been command in college, trying to work on it now in the minor leagues. Pay attention to Carson Seymour and basically the command more than anything, which you can say about most arms. But it's been really exciting. Even a first baseman, Jack Thomas Wold, has been off to a pretty good start here and there. I like his bat. He reminds me of like a Jeremy Vasquez of sorts. You don't see him hitting 30 home runs, but you can kind of see him putting the ball in play, being that professional bat. So they have a good mix of guys up and down, and they even have the draft picks like Hamill and Ziegler. And there's guys that a lot of the prospect gurus and even the draft junkies, they'll know the names from the last year's draft. And they've been kind of up and down, because guys like Ziegler are like teenagers as well. So they're kind of feeling it out like Junior Santos did last year in low A. 18, 19, 20 years old. You're just trying to eat innings, figure out command, and practice pitching.
Certainly, we're getting old, because when we hear some of these names, and it's been a couple of years, and now they're 22, 23, even friends of the show like Trey Cobb and Marcel Renteria. Always got to give Marcel Renteria a shout out, or even Steven Nagosic. And almost definitely time certainly flies here. And I also did want to bring it up in terms of just real quick. I mean, what is it like now back in St. Lucie and covering everything? I mean, does everything feel like I always like to ask this question to different people, especially since we haven't had you on. How does it feel? Is it there's a sense of normalcy down there? I mean, walk me through in terms of covering some of those games down there and such.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's Florida, so the state of Florida. We do things. We do things
I
a
was
little
on a
different.
2-hour Zoom about that, at a work Zoom, and it was like half the people were like, in Florida, it was like COVID never existed, and it's like being in New York, it's
Yeah,
like
so
you're on eggshells.
it was crazy. It was, in a way, they were kind of like nothing ever really changed by like the end of the summer last year. So, I mean, it's been exciting. But the things that they did to the ballpark have been incredible. From the outside to the inside, the murals are just amazing. It's really cool experiences. Although it's pretty weird, starting to feel old. They have the plaques lining up the walls down the third baseline. There's plaques along the bathrooms of minor leaguers who've reached the majors, and you see names of guys, and it's like, oh my god, I know they were a minor. I was watching them in 2015, and
I
now they're
know. Listen, McNeil, Dom Smith, Alonso. I mean, Tomas Nido, can never forget about Tomas Nido here on this show. I mean, Guillorme, all these guys, you watched them when they were like babies almost, like Teenage Mutant Ninja New York Mets or St. Lucie Mets.
I know. I don't even want to mention it, but Jeff McNeil might have been about $115 in the weight category when he was on the St. Lucie Mets. So yeah, it's always a fun experience. The people there are amazing. They have a really cool staff. The radio play-by-play guy, Adam McDonald, is amazing.
Yep.
So it's just a really cool experience. They got the older staff that are just amazing. So it's really fun to watch the games again. They got the bar sections going. So the crowd is kind of like, it's, what are you going to do? It's minor league baseball. They have certain crowds that are really cool. They do a lot of things for military appreciation and for seniors. They have a lot of senior nights. They rock out like the 7-line army in Major League for the Mets. They got like a 7-line army of sorts with the Silver Sluggers down there that go to games a lot and wear their matching shirts. So it's a fun experience. Usually every year, a few games a year, they bring a bunch of students for they just hang out and watch the game. So always a good time. It's happening again, having a good April. So it's been fun.
No question. These are reasons why you also want to follow Ernest Dove on Twitter. Ernest, D-O-V-E. Ernest.dove on Instagram. Also subscribe to his YouTube page, Facebook, Ernest Dove Jr., and find out why we love him. And he knows, listen, he knows things that I don't even think people in the Mets organization knows, and I'm not kidding. And you get to hear his interviews, of course, on Sportswire Radio. Obviously, we played a number of them here over the past several weeks. It's been a long list of different people here that we've played. And before we get closing thoughts and a thought or two, I mean, talk about some of those players of recent memory that you've interviewed and just what we can keep an eye on from them.
Yeah, it's been a blessing. I do miss hearing your intros, though. I love talking to you, but yeah, sometimes I've been doing my kind of.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna try Tuesday nights. So we're gonna do Tuesday nights after Met games. So that's why listen. We've improved. I mean, listen, from the days we were doing it on the phone recording or the Skype conversations. I mean, listen. I mean, we've improved. I mean, we've definitely made the improvements. I mean, we've kind of like, it's a grind. You know it better than anybody. We've grinded, man. People do this and they don't last, and here we are.
Here we are, still going. Like I said, I've been really lucky, really blessed to try to build relationships with some of the players and families. Some of the recent interviews have been amazing, all getting posted on Sportswire Radio, also getting posted on the YouTube channels. It's just on SoundCloud. It's been really exciting. So shout outs to even Joe Zangi, Jake Mangum, all the guys.
Cole Gordon we had on last week. We have to replay that one also on SoundCloud. So we had a number of them. And the Joe Zangi one, I like the Joe Zangi one. That was one of my favorites. Joe Zangi and Cole Gordon were good.
Yeah, really good guys. Kind of have a sleeper one. Gotta keep it on the hush hush until it happens. I got a really cool interview planned for the weekend with a guy who's even no longer with the Mets, but he was within the Mets coaching staffs, and now he's somewhere else. So I'm gonna be interviewing a guy with some major league experience on the coaching level. So it'll be the first time for that. So I'm super excited about it. So obviously stay tuned to Sportswire Radio, even through the Sports Report. I'll be interviewing a guy who's been at the major league level of coaching experience. Some stuff we're going to talk about, minor leagues, major leagues, even another country, by the way. So there's some cool things to look out for. I hope everybody continues to support me, support the show, and support the whole Sportswire radio crew.
Well, whatever you do, and I always tell my professional wrestlers that come on, whatever you do, don't tell us, don't give us any hints, don't give it away, because whenever we play, like I always tell my wrestlers, don't say anything that can incriminate yourself. So long as you didn't say anything that incriminates you. All right, so I want to make sure, because like I said, I always tell my wrestlers that I say, listen, whatever you do, don't tell me the outcome. Don't tell me who's going to win, who's going to lose, what you're going to do to win. Same thing here. So whatever you do, just keep it that way. Also, Jake Magnum we had on. That was a fun interview you had. So there's a number of interviews that you've had here. And before we get closing thoughts, I also wanted to ask you, how's Stephen Valine's doing? I always got to bring up Stephen Valine because I think of all the players we interviewed, I think we interviewed him the most. I think we did him like 3 times together. I think he came on with us like 3 or 4 times. I mean, and I think he still owes us an interview. So Stephen Valine's was one of the, I think probably the most, him and Trey Cobb, Trey Cobb, and Rennery, I think of the players we interviewed are easily by far my 3 favorites with us. I think I know Manny Rodriguez we did a couple of times. Obviously, shout out to him, and Connor O'Neill we had on, and Bryce Hutchinson. I can never forget about B. Hutch, Bryce Hutchinson. But I think of the guys we did the most, I think it was Renneria, Cobb, and most certainly Stephen Valines, I think were my favorites. And obviously, walk me through how he's doing.
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, shout out to the last time I was even more communicating with Stephen Valines. He and I were watching his wife play live stream professional.
He's a better athlete than he is. I mean, Madison, she's a way better athlete than him.
So, yeah, I guess unfortunately, Stephen Valines had a slow start to camp and spring, but he's now on the active roster. So he's back in AAA with the Texas Rangers organization. So, again, like with Trey Cobb, Stephen Valines is at AAA. There's nowhere else to go but up. So obviously, shout out Stephen Valines. He still is that guy. He's the true side armor. He's still going to sling it. He still has his frisbee going. So keep an eye out for Stephen Valines. Maybe he's one of those guys, too, that can get a call-up this year. That would obviously be, well, more exciting for him, maybe just above us, but we'll be just as excited probably when it comes. And also, shout out to him. Shout out to his wife and the volleyball career on her end as well. And just happy for all these guys, and I wish them all the best ongoing, obviously.
Valines, though, is the guy, and I know Renteria and Cobb have been knocking on the door most recently, but I feel like Valines, of all the players that we've interviewed, he's the guy that's been knocking on it for so long. I mean, he was there with the Mets in camp one year, and he's been at AAA almost perennially now for like 3 or 4 years, and he's just like knocking on the door, and he's obviously got to get there. I mean, he almost reminds me of a Craig Holman, different pitcher, but just hung on and on and on. And then, so you almost got to root for a guy like Stephen Valines. Stephen Valines is definitely one of those guys that you definitely want to root for here. And before we get closing thoughts, and now you got me convinced that we're going to do this each and every Tuesday at least, or a Monday after a Met game, because you worked me into it. So that's usually good, because I didn't know if I was going to do it, because I didn't know if my voice could hold up, because that's just kind of how it is. But then I got into a rhythm, and it's like, frig it, I'm just going to keep going. It always goes that way. Well, Fridays, I'm on the air for like 7 hours throughout the day, and the wrestlers always joke, well, Tom, how's your voice going to hold up for the Americans? And then I do the American show on Fridays, and the Americans are like, well, how does it hold up for the Englands? And today was kind of one of those similar examples. But before we get closing thoughts from you and such, I mean, is there 1 or 2 things that we should keep an eye on for the big league Mets, and also for our little league Mets, for not quite little league, but throughout the organization, throughout the other levels here? So give me 1 or 2 things we should keep an eye on for the Mets, and then for the Mets organization as a whole.
Well, even with the hot start of the rotation, here's what to look out for. Is DeGrom coming back? Or even on a shorter term, what's up with Walker? Is Carlos Carrasco for real? Not really a sub-1 ERA all year, but Carrasco's been incredible. So is Carrasco going to keep it up? Is Mcgill and Peterson going to be kind of stable in the roles that they're playing? You might as well worry about – I could talk about the bullpen all day, but bullpen's always going to be up and down. I want to look more towards DeGrom, Walker, Carrasco. In the next 2 months, what's the situation with those guys? Obviously, DeGrom, you got to wait on. So Walker and Carrasco, getting DeGrom back in there. What's going to happen? For the hitting, we could already really discuss it. Is Dom going to get to play a little bit more? How's he going to fit in? When Connor comes back already quickly, hopefully, what's the situation with McNeil on a day-to-day basis? Where is he going to keep playing? I think everything else is going to kind of keep flowing with the major league roster. The depth is there. So otherwise, it's just waiting on the AAA guys, if you want to say. Khalil Lee, Nick Plummer. Are those guys going to have to be called up?
We've seen it in the past before. He's been in the big leagues, no question.
So the main things, I just want to keep looking at the arms first and foremost as guys come back. You could definitely easily say, well, what do you do with Peterson anyway? Because where are some of these guys going when the DeGrom, Walkers, and when they start coming back, and then Connor comes back, what it does to the DH rotation? Those are the main things to look out for in the next 2 weeks is what's the DH rotation and what's the starting rotation when like a Walker comes back and see how that's going to play out.
And I think for me, Carrasco's the wild card because obviously last year, the poor guy just could like never have a scoreless first inning. And you look at, okay, he was a little better after the first innings usually, but like every start, it was certainly the first inning was always his problem. And I also want to give a shout out to John from Albany. Cannot forget about John from Albany because John from Albany always does a phenomenal job in supporting us. You can follow him on Twitter at John from Albany. I also want to give a shout out to maxmets.blogspot.com because you're doing some writing there. Your articles are on there as well. I want to make sure that we acknowledge them because, listen, they've been supporting, especially John from Albany and Mac. I mean, they've been supporting us like since the early days. So I want to make sure I acknowledge them. Also want to thank Donna who shared us on Twitter. I don't know who Donna is, but she did share it on Twitter. And there were some people that did follow and share. So I really appreciate all that. And I want to thank everybody in Durham, Inu, most importantly, for their work. Also want to thank our also newest addition, thanks to you, to the Sportswire radio family. And that is the Walking Off pod, also from Francisco. He's also part of Durham, Inu. He just had on Cardinals prospect Evan Mendoza with us. We played that. So a lot of great stuff here on the planks. Also, St. Lucie Mets, want to shout that out because they give Ernest those opportunities to be an accredited member of the media, be down there and get all that great stuff with all the player intel and all that information that Ernest has been famous for because, well, a guy, Ken Rosenthal, actually used Ernest's information once. And also, shout out to West Closing for Brandon West because Brandon West and West Clothing is the coolest guy that I definitely know. And I actually have a few of his shirts and I can't find them for whatever reason. I was actually looking for my West Clothing shirt. That means I have to go buy one of these days here in the next few weeks. So I definitely want to shout out Brandon West. I always see Brandon on Instagram, so he is definitely the man. He has supported us. He's always like us, hustling in the grind. That's what it always is about. Support those that support us. Brandon West, no different. And for you, my friend, I want to give you the floor. I want to give you some closing thoughts. Anything you want to plug. So happy we got you back here on the video, live and in living color, and looking forward to doing this with you each and every week again, like the old times, only bigger, better, badder. And what was it? Bigger, better, and badder? Who was it? What comedian said that? Was it bigger, better, and badder? I'm trying to forget which comic that was. But obviously, I want to give you the floor, and I can't thank you enough. Anything else you want to plug? And the floor is yours.
No, just thanks again, man, for letting me come on the live stream version of the show, man. It's really exciting to be part of the show ongoing for years. I love seeing the growth. I'm just really excited about the whole year to come now. Again, another year, part of the media in the minor leagues. Got the sponsorships. We got Durham Inu with having our back, getting the minor leaguers back. So I just think more and more big things are to come with all these things, even through the sponsorships. Through the excitement, you got Mets baseball winning again. The minor league farm systems with all the teenagers, they're all getting older. Now even the system's starting to win. The guys are starting to move up. That's why everyone's excited about Mets baseball up and down the system. And I'm just excited to have that small part of covering it. So I look forward to continuing to do it throughout the year as part of the show.
Absolutely. And again, cannot stress it enough. Follow Ernest Dove on Twitter at Ernest Dove. Also Instagram, Ernest.dove. Also Durham Inu, follow on Twitter. Also Follow YouTube Ernest Dove. He puts a lot of videos out there of players at bats and pitches, and that stuff's always cool. Always enjoyed that stuff when you're at a game and you could post those videos. When I used to go to the Islander games, I used to love doing that. Just post a little clip or stuff, and Ernest is always out there. So we're always envious, but we love all the things that he does for us on Sportswire Radio. He has definitely been with us from the beginning, like a Rob Maraska and the brute force Brad Weiss. Billy McInerney is with us again on the YouTube, and all the other streams we're on with Sportswire Radio. So we try to keep everybody, and we try to keep it clean, keep it cool, keep everybody together. And Ernest has been a part of that. Ernest, my friend, I can't thank you enough for all that you do for us. I'm looking forward to next week, looking forward to more player interviews from you, and thank you for all that you do. And we'll speak with you next week, and we'll hope it's just as positive for the Mets and obviously for the rest of the organization as well.
Hey, we shall see. Thank you, man. Thank you for your time.
As we're here on the Sports Report, the #1 global sports show with our very dear friend, the Honorable MC Ernest Dove, as I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. And if you are on Sportswire Radio, you will get a work in progress show here in about 10 minutes. So we'll see about Piles, and he's going to do a show with his wife. So always interesting when you do a podcast with your significant other. I'm not married, but I can only imagine what that's going to be like. So I'm going to listen to it while I'm watching the NBA playoffs and try to rehydrate my mouth. So we'll see how that goes. If you're on all of other platforms, I want to thank you. We'll be back, I think, Friday. I will be doing a marathon worth of shows. So until then, I'm going to rest my voice for a couple of days. And of course, catch Ernest with us here throughout the weekend. Thank you, everybody, for watching. If you're on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, you'll get this probably at some point in the afternoon or evening. We'll send it over to Desmond Johnson. I'm sure he'll play that. And thank you, everybody. Good night. If you're on sportnam.com/player in about 10 minutes or so, you will get a all-new work in progress. And if you're on all of other social media platforms, thank you for tuning in. And good night. I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. Okay.